The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of ceramic mugs filled the air of Cafe Analog. This cozy establishment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood was known for its vintage record players and walls adorned with local artists' work. It was one of those places where strangers smiled at each other and time seemed to move a little slower. But for Mason Brooks, that afternoon was about to freeze forever in memory. The moment his little boy pointed across the room, eyes wide with innocent recognition, and whispered words that would shake the ground beneath him. "That's my teacher, Daddy." Mason followed his son's tiny finger, expecting to see one of the cheerful staff from the elementary school, perhaps dropping by after work for a latte. What he saw instead made his chest tighten. The young man standing by the counter wearing a faded blue apron and carefully arranging pastries looked nothing like a typical teacher. His shoulders were slightly slouched from exhaustion, his eyes fixed on the display case. Yet something about his face, the quiet grace, the determination beneath his calm, made Mason's pulse quicken. Noah tugged at Mason's sleeve, excitement brightening his features. "Can we say hi to Wilson? He helps me with my drawings. He says I'm really good at colors." That small detail made Mason smile, but something about the teacher lingered in his mind. Why would an elementary school art teacher be working weekend shifts at a cafe? When Mr. Wilson approached their table to take their order, his voice was soft but steady. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you both today?" Noah grinned. "Hi, Mr. Wilson and Daddy. This is my teacher, Mr. Wilson. He knows how to make pictures that look real." The teacher's eyes flickered for a moment, and Mason saw a mix of pride and embarrassment. "Hi, Noah. I didn't expect to see you here." He gave a polite nod to Mason, who noticed the small tear near the sleeve of his uniform, the way he tucked a loose strand of hair behind his ear, and how he seemed to avoid direct eye contact. They ordered, and as Mr. Wilson turned to leave, Noah's innocent chatter continued, oblivious to the quiet tension. "Daddy, he showed us how to mix colors to make new ones. And he listens when I talk about having two daddies before." That last comment caught Mason off guard. Noah rarely spoke about David anymore, not since the accident 3 years ago. The bridge collapse in San Francisco had taken everything from Mason to his husband, his best friend, their life together. In the aftermath, adopting Noah, David's best friend's orphaned son, had been both Mason's salvation and his most terrifying leap of faith. As they ate, Mason found himself watching the teacher work. He moved quickly from table to table, balancing trays and exchanging polite smiles. Yet there was a heaviness in his steps. When an elderly woman spilled her drink, he rushed to clean it up, apologizing even though it wasn't his fault. When the manager scolded him for being slow, he simply nodded and went back to work. Later, when the cafe began to empty, Noah dozed against Mason's shoulder. Mason signaled for the check, and Mr. Wilson brought it over with a faint smile. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the bill down. "Thank you for coming, Brooks," he said quietly. Mason looked up, surprised. "You know me?" The teacher's eyes dropped momentarily. "Noah talks about you in class. He says you build bridges for people, that you make broken things stand again." Mason's heart stuttered. Those were words David used to describe Mason's work as an architect specializing in historical restoration. As Mr. Wilson Jackson walked away, Mason couldn't help but wonder what broken pieces this young teacher was trying to hold together in his own life. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share Heart Stories channel. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional, and life-changing stories to you. 3 days later, Mason found himself standing in the hallway of Cascade Elementary, just outside the art room. Through the glass panel in the door, he watched as Jackson guided tiny hands through the motions of molding clay, his patience seemingly endless as sticky fingers and giggles filled the colorful space. Mason had come ostensibly to discuss Noah's progress, but truth be told, something about Jackson Wilson had nestled into his thoughts and refused to leave. Noah had been different since their visit to the cafe, more animated, more willing to talk about his feelings through his artwork. For a child who had lost his parents and then found himself with an adoptive father, still grieving his own loss, this was no small miracle. Mason knocked gently on the doorframe. The classroom was empty, save for Jackson, who was cleaning paintbrushes with methodical care. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning ordinary dust motes into flecks of gold. "Mr. Brooks?" Jackson said, straightening up. "Is everything all right with Noah?" Mason stepped into the room, noticing how Jackson's posture shifted. Professional, but guarded. "Actually, I wanted to thank you. Noah's been more expressive lately. He even drew a picture of David, my late husband, yesterday. He hasn't been able to do that since the accident." Something in Jackson's expression softened. Noah has a gift for expressing emotions through color. Most children his age use literal representation, but he understands symbolism intuitively. As they talked, Mason's architect's eye noted the careful organization of the classroom, how each supply had its place, how student work was displayed with thoughtful reverence. This wasn't just a job for Jackson, it was a calling. The conversation flowed easily until the door opened abruptly. A stern-faced woman in a tailored suit entered without knocking, eyeing Mason with pointed curiosity before turning to Jackson. "Mr. Wilson, Principal Porter would like to see you in his office immediately." The woman's gaze lingered disapprovingly on a rainbow safe space sticker on Jackson's desk before she departed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Patricia Henderson," Jackson explained, his voice hollow. "Head of the PTA and founder of the Traditional Family Values Alliance. She's been trying to have me removed since she found out I'm gay." The words hung in the air between them, a test of sorts. Mason felt a flicker of recognition. Not just empathy, but the bone-deep understanding of what it meant to be judged for who you love rather than how you live. "I should go," Jackson said, grabbing his messenger bag. Principal Porter isn't known for his patience. Mason followed him down the hallway, an unspoken solidarity in his steps. Outside the principal's office, Jackson paused. "You don't have to." "I want to," Mason interrupted. "Noah thinks the world of you? That matters to me." Inside, Principal Porter sat behind a massive desk. Patricia Henderson perched in a chair beside him like a sentinel. The letter on the desk was already signed. Budget cuts, staff reductions, newest hires first to go. The words were bureaucratic, but the message was clear. As Jackson accepted the termination notice with quiet dignity, Mason noticed how Patricia's lips curved into a satisfied smile. The injustice of it burned in his chest. This wasn't about budget, not really. It was about Jackson's rainbow sticker. About parents like Patricia who believe people like Jackson and Mason shouldn't be around children. Later, in the parking lot, rain fell in that quintessential Seattle drizzle, not enough to soak, just enough to chill. Jackson stood by his worn Honda, staring at the letter in his hands. "They've wanted me gone since day one," he said, voice barely audible above the patter of raindrops. "I work at the cafe to make rent. I'm putting myself through a master's in art education at UW. I thought maybe if I was qualified enough, talented enough, it wouldn't matter who I love." Mason leaned against his car, memories of similar moments in his own life surfacing like bruises pressed too hard. "My parents still introduce David as my roommate when they talk about him, 3 years after his funeral." The confession surprised even Mason. He rarely spoke about this pain, especially to someone who was nearly a stranger. Yet Jackson wasn't really a stranger anymore. Was he? The art teacher looked up, raindrops clinging to his eyelashes. "How does Noah handle that?" It was such a Jackson question, thinking of the child first, even in his own moment of crisis. Mason felt something inside him shift, like the first cautious step onto a bridge not yet tested for safety. The rain fell harder as they talked, neither making a move to leave, both recognizing something rare in this connection: understanding without explanation, wounds seen without judgment. What neither man realized yet was that sometimes, when the right pieces fall together at the right moment, Even the most broken hearts can begin to heal. Sometimes the architects of our salvation come in forms we never expected, rebuilding us with brushstrokes instead of blueprints. The Cascade Elementary Gymnasium buzzed with tension as parents filed in for the emergency board meeting. Mason sat in the back row, stomach knotted with anticipation. He had spent 3 days preparing for this moment, gathering signatures, researching school bylaws, and most importantly, listening to Noah sob about losing Mr. Wilson. Patricia Henderson dominated the front row, surrounded by her alliance of like-minded parents who nodded at her every whispered comment. Principal Porter sat with the school board members, his expression carefully neutral, though his eyes darted occasionally to the door as if plotting an escape. When public comments opened, Patricia rose first, her voice dripping with rehearsed concern. While budget cuts are unfortunate, we must prioritize teachers who embody traditional values. Some lifestyles simply aren't appropriate influences for impressionable children. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mason watched several parents shift uncomfortably, eyes downcast, silent in their complicity. He recognized that silence. He had lived in it himself, before David had taught him the cost of such quiet. When Mason's name was called, he walked to the microphone with steady steps. The architectural plans he had brought felt heavy in his hands. He placed them on the podium, unrolled them with practiced precision, and looked up at the board members. "My son Noah came home from school yesterday with this," he said, holding up a crumpled drawing. "It's the first time since losing his birth parents that he's been able to express his grief. This breakthrough happened in Mr. Wilson's art class, where Noah felt safe enough to finally confront his pain." Mason gestured to his plans. "As an architect specializing in restoration, I understand the importance of foundations. Mr. Wilson has built an emotional foundation for these children. Removing him doesn't protect our kids. It teaches them that being different makes you disposable." Patricia's hands shot up, but Mason continued, his voice gathering strength. "Before voting, you should know that Noah isn't the only child who's flourished under Mr. Wilson's guidance." He turned to face Patricia directly. "Your son Max has shown remarkable improvement in his emotional regulation since joining the art therapy group. His counselor noted it in his progress report last month." Patricia's face flushed crimson. The revelation that her son was receiving therapy wasn't public knowledge. Her alliance members glanced at her with newfound uncertainty. From the middle row, a woman stood. "Eleanor Kim," she introduced herself. "I'm a counselor at Lambert House and a parent of 2 Cascade students. Mr. Wilson's approach to art education has given LGBTQ youth a voice they never had before. Terminating him sends a devastating message to vulnerable children." The meeting stretched into hours as more parents came forward. Not all supported Jackson, but enough questioned the rushed decision to force the board into reconsideration. By the end, Principal Porter announced a 2-week review period before any final action. Outside in the parking lot, Jackson waited by his car, having been too proud to attend a meeting about his own dismissal. When Mason approached, the teacher's eyes were guarded. "They're reconsidering," Mason said. "It's not a victory yet, but it's a start." Jackson nodded, gratitude warring with skepticism on his face. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me." The question hung between them like Seattle mist, visible only when the light hit it just right. Mason could have mentioned Noah's attachment or professional respect, but something pulled him toward honesty instead. 3 years ago, I couldn't save someone I loved from a collapsing bridge. Maybe I'm trying to stop something else from falling apart." The vulnerability in his admission surprised them both. Jackson's expression softened, the wall behind his eyes lowering slightly. "I have a friend who directs the Emerald Arts Center downtown," Mason continued, his words coming faster now. "They're expanding their youth program and need someone with your qualifications. The Gates Foundation just approved their funding." Jackson's breath caught. "Mason, see, I can't accept. It's not charity, it's recognition of your talent. I've seen how Noah transforms under your guidance. Other children deserve that chance too." As they stood in the darkening parking lot, headlights occasionally sweeping across their faces, Something shifted between them. Trust taking root in soil neither had expected to till again. What began as an unexpected encounter in a cafe was evolving into something neither man had been looking for, but both desperately needed a chance to rebuild, not just a career or a family, but faith in the possibility that broken things could be mended, that fallen bridges could rise again. The Emerald Arts Center buzzed with afternoon energy as children from across Seattle gathered in the renovated warehouse space. Mason leaned against the door frame of Studio 3, watching Jackson guide a circle of children through an art therapy session. 6 weeks had passed since Jackson had joined the center, and already his program had a waiting list. "Today we're exploring our strongest memories," Jackson explained, his voice gentle as he distributed heavy paper and oil pastels. "Sometimes memories feel so big inside us that they need to come outside where we can see them." Mason's eyes found Noah, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, his tongue caught between his teeth in concentration. The boy had flourished under Jackson's continued guidance, growing more talkative, more willing to speak about David and his birth parents. When the children began drawing, Mason slipped away to the center's lobby where blueprints for the expansion were spread across a table. The renovation project had become his passion. Creating spaces where art could heal had awakened something in him that had been dormant since the San Francisco tragedy. Hours later, after the other children had been collected by parents, Mason returned to find Jackson kneeling beside Noah, who was putting the finishing touches on his drawing. As Mason approached, the image made his breath catch, a bridge collapsing into dark waters. A tiny figure falling, surrounded by red slashes that could only represent pain. "That's when Daddy David went away," Noah explained, pointing to the figure. "The bridge broke and he fell helping people. Sometimes I dream he's still falling." Mason's knees weakened. Noah had never spoken so directly about the accident before. Jackson looked up, meeting Mason's stunned gaze with quiet understanding. "Noah was just showing me how sometimes we can draw the monsters that scare us at night," Jackson said carefully. "When we put them on a paper, they don't seem quite as big in our heads." Later, after Noah had fallen asleep in the center's reading nook, Mason sat with Jackson in the empty studio, the drawing between them like a live wire neither dared touch. "I should have been there," Mason whispered, words he had never spoken aloud. David called that morning. The bridge was showing stress fractures after the earthquake. He wanted my opinion. I was in Boston, presenting designs to my parents who were still pretending he wasn't my husband. I told him I'd call back later. Jackson didn't offer platitudes. Instead, he shared his own truth. "When I came out, my father changed the locks, said he'd rather have no son than a gay one. My college roommate's parents took me in for senior year. Art saved me. It was the only place I could pour all that pain." As darkness gathered outside, these two met, both architects in their own way, one of buildings and one of healing, spoke of things long buried. Jackson described the small indignities he faced daily, the parents who pulled their children from his classes, the constant need to prove his worth beyond his identity. Mason revealed the weight of raising Noah alone, the guilt that colored his grief, the way his parents maintained careful distance from the boy who reminded them of the son's lifestyle choice. When Jackson's hand covered Mason's on the table, neither acknowledged it directly, but neither pulled away. Touch-starved souls recognizing safe harbor in each other. The following Saturday, Mason invited Jackson to dinner at his Queen Anne apartment. Noah bounced with excitement, proudly showing his teacher his collection of seashells and the view of Puget Sound from the living room window. As they ate pasta at the small dining table, laughter flowed easily between them. Mason caught himself studying Jackson's profile in the warm lamplight, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how his hands moved expressively as he spoke. After Noah went to bed, they stood on the balcony with glasses of wine, the Seattle skyline glittering against the night sky. The Space Needle was illuminated in rainbow colors for Pride weekend, a coincidence that felt somehow significant. "I have tickets to the Pride Parade tomorrow," Jackson said, his voice casual though his grip on the railing tightened. Noah might enjoy the music and colors. The invitation hung between them, not just to an event, but to something more, to being seen together in public, to acknowledging whatever was growing between them. Mason looked at Jackson, really looked at him, seeing not just the art teacher or his son's hero, but a man who had faced rejection and emerged with his kindness intact. A man who taught children to turn pain into beauty. A man who made Mason's heart race in a way he thought had died on that bridge 3 years ago. "I'd like that," Mason said softly. "We'd like that very much." Under the glow of the pride-colored Space Needle, something bloomed between them, fragile as new growth, strong as old foundations. Perhaps true healing doesn't mean forgetting the past, but finding someone who helps you carry it with grace. Someone who sees your broken places and loves you not despite them, but because of how beautifully you've mended. 1 year later, the gallery at Emerald Art Center hummed with excited voices. The Bridges Art That Rebuilds exhibition had drawn a larger crowd than anticipated, with attendees spilling from the main gallery into the adjoining spaces. Paintings, sculptures, and mixed media pieces created by students of all ages filled the walls, each exploring the theme of connection and restoration. At the center of the main wall hung Noah's piece, a large canvas depicting 3 figures standing on a bridge that spanned a deep chasm. The bridge was constructed of countless small objects, paintbrushes, building blocks, seashells, and fragments of blueprints. Above it, in childish lettering surrounded by a rainbow halo, were the words, "Nothing breaks that can't be rebuilt more beautifully." Mason stood near the refreshment table, watching as Jackson guided a group of donors through the exhibition. His heart swelled with pride seeing the man who had become such an essential part of their lives in his element, passionate and articulate about the healing power of creative expression. The past year had transformed them all. Noah had blossomed into a confident 7-year-old who spoke openly about having 2 daddies, one in heaven and one with Mary Jackson. Mason had expanded his architectural practice to focus on community spaces, incorporating art therapy rooms into every design. And Jackson had been promoted to Director of Youth Programs at the center, his innovative curriculum now being adopted by schools throughout Washington state. Their journey hadn't been without obstacles. Patricia Henderson had initially followed through on her threat to sue the Arts Center for hiring Jackson, claiming he promoted inappropriate values. But her crusade faltered when her own son Max created a powerful exhibition piece about feeling accepted for the first time in Jackson's class. The lawsuit was quietly dropped, though Patricia still averted her eyes when they crossed paths at community events. Mason's parents had been another hurdle. Their first visit from Boston had been tense. His mother's pinched expression when Jackson was introduced speaking volumes. But Noah's uninhibited joy around both men and Jackson's patient respect gradually softened their resistance. By their third visit, Mason's father was asking Jackson's opinion on the modern art exhibition at Seattle Art Museum, a small but significant olive branch. As the evening progressed, Mason noticed a hush fall over one corner of the gallery. There stood Patricia Henderson, tissues clutched in her hand, staring at a painting created by her son. Max's artwork depicted 2 versions of himself, one gray and fading, one vibrant and colorful, connected by a bridge made of paintbrushes. The placard beside it read, "Being seen how art helped me find my voice." When Patricia turned and saw Jackson nearby, she hesitated before approaching him. Their conversation was brief, their postures stiff, but the fact that it happened at all represented something profound. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Noah had fallen asleep between his favorite stuffed animals, Mason and Jackson stood in the kitchen of their new home on Queen Anne Hill. Through the window, they could see the Emerald City's lights reflected in the waters of Puget Sound. Patricia asked if Max could join the summer intensive program. Jackson said, still sounding surprised. She said he's different when he creates art. Happier. Mason smiled, wrapping his arms around Jackson's waist from behind. Sometimes the strongest bridges are built by the most unexpected architects. Jackson turned in his embrace, eyes reflecting the same wonder Mason felt daily at this life they were creating together. When Noah pointed me out in that cafe, did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Mason shook his head, Remembering the exhausted barista with paint-stained fingers who had unknowingly changed the course of 3 lives with his compassion and courage. Some structures aren't planned on paper first. The most beautiful ones sometimes build themselves when the right elements come together. As they stood in their kitchen, in this home they had created not just with walls and floors, but with patience and understanding. Mason thought about the countless ways love reconstructs us after loss. How sometimes the most profound architectural achievements aren't buildings at all, but the invisible bridges we build between broken hearts. Have you ever experienced a moment of unexpected connection that changed your life's direction? A chance meeting, a kind word, or a brave stand that created something beautiful from what was broken? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey touched your heart, please subscribe to Heart Stories channel for more tales of healing, hope, and the bridges we build between us.